Hey everybody, Michael Snyder, Pacific Northwest Weather Watch. Today's January 6th, and right now we are looking at the infrared satellite imagery. Got British Columbia, Washington, Oregon. Check out that frontal system ushering in all this cold air. You can see the cold air cumulus behind this system here. Can't rule out a lightning strike or two as we go through the afternoon today, and we're going to continue some of this mountain snow in this cold air cumulus as it runs into our mountain ranges here. And we've also got more on the way. And what everybody wants to talk about is that Arctic air up there. Some of the model's been backing off on the exact track of that Arctic air, but we'll take a look and see what the most recent model runs have to say about that and what we can or may not expect here across the Pacific Northwest. Taking a look at the heavy mountain snow, though, that is pretty much a certainty here. And you can see localized 3-day totals of 4 to 5 feet possible here. Nice graphic from the National Weather Service. Seattle, this goes all the way in through Wednesday afternoon. Of course, you can see it highlights the Cascade Mountains there, mainly above 2,000 feet. We could even bring some lower snow levels in here as we go on in towards next week as well. We'll look at those details as we go. Also, some strong gusty winds accompanying that heavy snowfall. This is for Spokane, Washington. Here you can kind of see we're expecting multiple rounds of storms coming in here, particularly strong one here as we go through the Tuesday time period, and I'll show you that here in a moment as well. Taking a look at the HER, the 3 kilometer, the high resolution model, and this is that frontal system as it went through last night, and you see all the showery air behind that. And as we go through the afternoon today, you can kind of see that eventually stop from the northwest down towards the southeast here as we go into very early tomorrow morning. Some residual showers still pushing across Oregon, continuing to bring a few more inches across the Cascades of Oregon here. Then we bring another weak system in here on Monday, but we've got a much stronger one right on the heels of that. We're going to go over that in some detail here starting just in a minute or two. Now, this is looking at the surface base camp. I just wanted to show you there is some instability, of course, with that very cold air aloft as we're dealing with right now. So you can't rule out a couple lightning strikes, mainly across the coastal areas here as we go through the day today for the most part. Then you can kind of see that convective available potential energy kind of wane there as we go on in towards Monday before the next systems arrive. Taking a look at the European total snow 10-to-1 ratio. Check it out. We're piling it up pretty good here across the Cascades by tomorrow morning, as you can see. And then we're going to start to bring some additional systems here as we go through the day. Monday, a few more inches, and then a much more powerful system will arrive at some point here on Tuesday. And you can see the snow totals just really ramping up across the Cascades and the Rocky Mountains here, some of the coastal ranges, Vancouver Island, Western BC really getting in on the action here as well. And then we'll just go ahead and kind of we'll save our energy here for what's coming off in the extended as well here, because models are in flux and we need to start to get some consistency before we worry about what's coming up here beyond the midweek period. But let's go ahead and take a look at that next storm system coming in here. You can see got British Columbia, there's Alaska there, we got Washington and Oregon. Let's put this into motion. Oh, and by the way, the GFS is on the right, the European is on the left here. These are last night's run, the 06Z, which is 10 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. There goes our frontal system that pushed through very early this morning here, and then we turn our eyes to this weak system coming in Monday. You can see it right there, but this storm out here has got trouble written all over it. I've backed up here. Now this is Sunday afternoon, and you can see this thing just kind of emerge out of the subtropics here, and it's going to take aim at the Pacific Northwest. You can see it kind of a harmless looking thing out there, right? And then look at this thing just explode. This would reach bomb cyclone status here on both the European and the GFS. Look at this monster low. The GFS a little bit further north, but stronger with this system. And this has a potential for some pretty powerful winds here, maybe even kind of a borderline region-wide windstorm potential with this system here. We'll be watching it closely, but it is going to pack a powerful gradient, as you can see. Look at that 985 millibar low burrowing into central British Columbia here with a very stacked gradient all the way down towards southern Oregon here. Windy conditions along the coast, potentially even inland here as well. And the GFS holds that storm system back a little bit more, but both solutions would be quite windy here. And by bomb cyclone, I mean when you drop by 24 millibars in a 24-hour period, it reaches that bomb cyclone status. It's just a category there based on the pressure drop. But you can see it goes from 983, and if we back that up, look at that, 1,008 millibars. 1083, that's about what, 25 millibars in 18 hours, and even looks like an even stronger drop there on the GFS here. So yeah, that'll reach bomb cyclone status. Powerful storm incoming here on Tuesday. Now, I want to look back across Pacific Ocean. You can see the Hawaiian Islands there, Japan to the far left. There's Washington State right here. So we put this into motion, and you'll see it kind of comes from the subtropics down here off to the west of the Hawaiian Islands. And then there it is right there. It looks kind of harmless, like I mentioned again. And then that thing just explodes into a powerful low pressure center right on the northern tip of Vancouver Island, according to last night's European run. So it's going to be fun watching the models just for that over the next couple of days. And as you can see, this would be very early Tuesday morning. So I should be actually talking about Wednesday afternoon and Wednesday night time frame, even more than Tuesday, because this thing is coming in pretty quick. And then you can see that storm kind of pass through British Columbia here and off through Alberta. And then you see what is known as an Arctic high try to sag across British Columbia here. And that tries to spill some colder air back down into the Pacific Northwest. But the model's been backing off on just how cold it's going to get and the trajectory of the air off the coastline here. And if you get it just right, you can really cause some cyclogenesis to interact with that Arctic air, and you can bring a dynamic winter storm west of the Cascades here. But right now, it's not looking too favorable for that, although some of the models like the European still hold on to some of that troughing here, which could bring some lower snow levels here. So this is what we're going to be watching over the next few days. Right here is about Thursday late morning is what we're looking at here. And you can see that Arctic high on the move on the day Wednesday, trying to settle into central BC there in Alberta. So that's what we're going to be watching here. And that is really the driver of that cold Arctic air. Now, taking a look back here, this is where that wind system here, that windy storm system that's going to be developing on Monday and really moving up here Monday night into Tuesday morning, is going to be developing back here. So we'll be watching that over the next few days and watching its progress on the infrared satellite imagery. Now, looking at the European last night's run. So this is the storm system that came through, and you can see all the plentiful mountain snows here. That's going to be going on into this afternoon across the Cascades, again ending from northwest to southeast here as that very cold air mass takes up residence here across much of the western USA. Weak impulse here coming in on very early Monday morning, and then you can see our next monster out here really rapidly deepening as it approaches Vancouver Island. And again, another big round of mountain snows, high winds for the mountains here, and potential for big winds, coastal areas, even in towards the interior. We'll take a look at some of the ensemble members on that here in a moment as well. But yeah, some nice mountain snows for sure. Very high confidence in that here over the next few days as we go towards the end of the week. Now, looking at the European on the left versus the GFS on the right, this is about 925 millibars just off the surface. There goes our frontal system here. There goes the weak impulse Monday morning here. And then you can see the next monster here. Pretty good agreement between the GFS and the European. But again, the GFS is not as progressive with that storm into the interior of British Columbia here. So we'll see how that works out over the next few days. And that's going to make a big difference on just how windy we get across some interior portions. But look at Seattle, Tacoma on the European. I mean, look at the ensemble runs are really starting to ramp things up here. A lot of these are up over 50 miles per hour. That could be damaging. We could be dealing with some power outages. The control run had 43, which is still a pretty strong wind in its own right. But you can see some pretty good ensemble agreement rolling in here very early Tuesday morning for a very windy period. This is Hoquiam on the Washington coast. Check it out. I mean, you're talking about some pretty good ensemble agreement with gusts well up into the 50s here also, and even maybe up towards 60 miles per hour. We'll see. This storm is going to pack quite a punch. Here's Bellingham. Also, the control run had 45, and you can see it's got its fair share of members up over 50, 55 miles per hour, even a couple up over 60 here for Bellingham. And this is Tillamook all the way down the Oregon coast. It's going to get quite wild with this storm. This is quite a punch here, folks. And you can see plenty of ensemble members up over 50 miles per hour. Now, taking a look at the upper levels of the atmosphere, this is 500 millibar temperature. So this is the system that was coming through this morning and still passing through as we speak. Look at that nice batch of cold air taking aim here at the western USA. And then you can see our next system out here, and you can kind of see it almost like a reverse braking wave taking aim right at Vancouver Island there. So that is going to be our next wind maker here before the potential for some Arctic air drops down across. And you can kind of see it right at the end of the European run here. This polar lobe is going to try to sag south here, and we're probably going to get some cold air into some of the Pacific Northwest here. Just what kind of track this takes is the big question. More on that here in a moment. Looking at 700 millibars, 10,000 feet. This is the European. There goes our frontal system there. We've been talking about it at length. And then you can see the next storm running in here. It's kind of just a reminder that we deal with a three-dimensional atmosphere, and 700 millibars, 10,000 feet gives you a nice visual representation of that powerful pressure gradient that's going to accompany the storm on Tuesday. And then we start to worry about some of this polar air dropping down across Western Canada. Now, looking at the European, this is a last night's run again. This is accumulated 10-meter max wind gust. You can see Washington, Oregon, and put it into motion. And as we go on in through late Monday night, you can see the storm system arrive here, and you can see some of these healthy gusts starting to rip across the area. We could have a powerful westerly surge down the Strait of Juan, some big gusts up over 50 miles per hour for the coastal areas. And don't sleep on this across the mountains as well as we go through Tuesday. Some big gusts incoming here with just some downright blizzard-like conditions. They're going to be heavy snow. Not a good day to be traveling there as we go through the day Tuesday for sure. Now, looking at the European on the left versus the GFS on the right, we're going to take a look at that polar lobe now that's coming midweek and just see what its progression looks like. Here we go with that storm system as we go through Tuesday. Again, deep lows on the GFS and the European there. And then that polar lobe is here. And look at the GFS, just really cuts it off and keeps most of that energy east of the Rockies. That would still bring some cold air towards the Pacific Northwest, but it would not be a favorable track for low elevation snowfall west of the Cascades or down into southwest BC. However, you can see the Europeans still kind of hanging on to a little bit of life here and trying to throw some of that troughing back into the Pacific Northwest here. So over the next day or so, the trend hasn't been good. It's been going easterly on both the GFS and the European here, but we'll see if there's any chance at all, probably here over the next day or two as we continue to watch these model runs come in. Now taking a look at the GFS that's hot off the presses. It's a 12Z run. Put that into motion here. There goes our frontal system going by this morning. The next low pressure center there moving into BC that has some pretty widespread wind potential here across a lot of the Pacific Northwest. And then that polar vortex here and this polar lobe just really not taking that trajectory that you need for a dynamic winter storm west of the Cascades here. But it still is going to bring some cold air very close to the Pacific Northwest and some extremely cold air there east of the Rockies also. Now, taking a look here at the European on the left versus the GFS on the right, 850 millibars, 5,000 feet. Put this into motion here, and what we're going to be looking at here is that development of the cold air, again, across Western Canada. You can see it's both there on the GFS. This is the ensemble mean here, and the ensemble control for the European on the left, but don't worry about that too much. Just go ahead and look at that cold air building up here, and you can see the European wants to sag some of this south into southern BC. The GFS is much further to the east of that, so that's the problem we're dealing with there as forecasters. You can see this would mean big differences for places across western Washington, Oregon, and southwest BC. So that's what we're going to be watching very closely, and we're going to break that down again carefully tomorrow during tomorrow's video. But this is looking at 2-meter temperature anomaly. Again, European versus GFS here. Let's scroll ahead off into the future. Here we go, and you can see that cold air starting to accumulate there across western Canada. And look at the big differences. This really highlights what the differences would be. You can see some very chilly air trying to reach out towards western British Columbia, and the GFS is not having it. It's keeping that off to the east. And actually, the GFS right now is kind of more believable, but not to say that the European couldn't happen. But, we'll break it down again tomorrow. We've got to kind of bide our time here and try to get better model consistency before we start to form a forecast out towards the end of next week, or middle portions in the end of next week, I should say. 6 to 10 day, you can see the Climate Prediction Center clearly painting that bullseye here across much of the western USA, and of course, which would include western Canada as well. And this is 6 to 10 day precipitation. Who knows what this is going to look like? I wouldn't put too much stock in this just yet. Also, we've got big wave action out there as well. Watch out for those sneaker waves, and you'll see our storm system start to roll in here as we go on in through Monday night into Tuesday. So it could be some good wave watching action out there as we go through the day Tuesday all the way on in through Wednesday. Don't turn your back on the ocean. Keep your pets and your kids out of the surf zone, folks, and be very careful out there. I mean, people get swept away every single year. Let's try to keep that to the number of 0 as we go through the rest of the winter. Why not? Let's just make it a thing from now on where nobody gets in trouble on the coastline from the wave action here. So anyway, taking a look at snow water equivalent here across Pacific Northwest. This snow upcoming here, virtual guarantee at this point, and it's much needed. As you can see, a lot of areas are below 50% snow water equivalent across Pacific Northwest, all the way up into British Columbia here as well. So definitely we will take it. It's almost always a good thing unless it starts to create avalanches and shut down the roadways out there. But even then, we need our snowfall across the higher terrain. We got to fill those aquifers and those reservoirs out there. And this is a Seattle Tacoma, or actually Seattle National Weather Service here, but this shows you some of the potential at Seattle Tacoma International Airport here. And they're kind of showing you the variability here upcoming, the chance for some very cold temperatures here, but the most likely temperatures here. And we're probably right now, most likely even probably going to be warmer than that here. So again, we'll break this down day by day, and I'll give you better information here over the next day or two, and we'll have better model agreement. We'll have a much better idea of what is to come here as we go through the next couple of days. But anyway, yeah, nice frontal system coming through there, chilly air mass, and we've got a potent storm coming in here, bomb cyclone. Looks like it's going to be forming off of the coast of the Northwest here and diving into Vancouver Island. Going to be watching that one closely for some very powerful winds and some power outages here, even in towards the interior areas. So anyway, yeah, hope you guys are liking these videos. We'll do this again tomorrow. We'll break down that entire polar lobe again and see how it's going. And I will talk to you guys then.